Imagine your son bursting into your workshop, demanding $1 million inheritance right now, threatening court, and calling you an obstacle to his life. But the 67-year-old father, a master clock restorer, smiles. He knows about his son's thefts, forged documents, and betrayal. This greed won't go unpunished. The consequences will be devastating, turning the inheritance into a trap. Before continuing, subscribe to the channel and write in the comments what time it is in your region right now. The French carriage clock's delicate mechanism gleamed under my workshop light, its brass gears frozen mid-tick since 1847. I'd spent 3 hours carefully cleaning each component, my jeweler's loupe revealing centuries of accumulated grime. At 67, my hands remained steady, steadier than they'd been in years, actually. Restoring antique timepieces taught you patience and precision. The workshop door slammed open hard enough to rattle the 23 restored clocks lining my walls. "We need to talk. Now." My son Ryan stood in the doorway, his wife Tessa right behind him. Her expression was that particular blend of entitlement and calculation I'd learned to recognize in my 4 decades running Thompson's Antiques. She looked like someone appraising merchandise. I set down my tools slowly. "Ryan, Tessa, it's 7:30 on a Friday evening. I'm working." "Working?" Ryan's laugh had an edge I didn't like. "Dad, you're 67 years old. You've been working for 40 years. Don't you think it's time to share the wealth?" I removed my loupe, studying my son the way I'd examine a piece claiming to be authentic Chippendale. The expensive haircut, the Rolex I knew cost more than his annual salary as an IT manager, the entitled set of his shoulders. "Share what, exactly?" Tessa stepped forward, her smile bright and hollow. "Stuart, you're not getting any younger. At your age, you should be enjoying retirement, not hunched over old clocks. Let the family help manage things." "Manage things," I repeated. "You mean my 4 antique shops on King Street? The business I built from scratch?" "I mean your money," Ryan cut in. His voice rose. "My inheritance. $1 million. I want it now." The workshop went very quiet. Even the ticking clocks seemed to pause. "Your inheritance." I kept my tone mild, conversational, while I'm still alive and healthy. "You're 67. Ryan's face flushed. "Anything could happen. You could develop dementia, make bad decisions. Tessa and I have been talking to a lawyer." "Have you now?" I stood, moving to the wall, safe hidden behind a mahogany panel. My fingers remembered the combination without conscious thought. 4 decades of protecting valuable items taught you certain habits. "We could contest your will," Tessa said sweetly. "Prove you're not mentally competent. It's actually quite easy at your age, Stuart. One forgetful moment, one odd financial decision. Like $1 million charitable donation." I pulled an envelope from the safe, turned to face them. "That would seem irrational, wouldn't it? Giving away money your son clearly deserves." Ryan's eyes locked onto the envelope. I watched the greed flicker across his face, naked and ugly. "Exactly," he said, missing my tone entirely. "See? You get it. That's my money, Dad. Mine. You've had your whole life to make your fortune. Now it's my turn." For 20 minutes I listened to my son explain how I owed him, how he'd sacrificed his relationship with me by letting me control him through money, how Tessa's friends all had wealthy in-laws who understood family duty, how they needed that million for investments, for their lifestyle, for their future. I said nothing, just stood there, envelope in hand, watching the performance. Finally, Ryan ran out of steam. "So?" he demanded. "What's it going to be? Give me what's mine or we go to court. And trust me, old man, you don't want that fight." I smiled. After 40 years of negotiating with dealers, collectors, and con artists, I'd perfected the art of the poker face. "You know what, son? You're absolutely right." I held out the envelope. "Here you go. The documents for your inheritance. $1 million, just like you asked." Ryan snatched it so fast he nearly tore the paper. Tessa pressed close, both of them staring at the contents. I watched their faces with the same analytical attention I'd give a suspect painting. Ryan's expression went from triumph to confusion to pure white shock in under 5 seconds. His hands started shaking. What is this?" His voice cracked. This is a charitable donation receipt." "Indeed it is," I said pleasantly. "Charleston Children's Educational Fund. $1 million donated in your name, Ryan Stewart Thompson. Very generous of you. In my name? He screamed. You donated my money in my name. Not quite. I picked up a tiny gear from my workbench, examined it against the light. I donated money to a worthy cause, naming you as the honored donor. It's all completely legal. My accountant filed the paperwork this morning. Tessa grabbed the document, her face contorting as she read. Lock period. 20 years? What does that mean? It means, I said calmly, the donation is irrevocable and restricted. The money stays in the fund for 20 years before it can be distributed to the children's programs, standard practice for endowments, and completely, utterly, irreversibly final. Ryan's face had gone from white to purple. You can't. This is illegal. This is my inheritance. Actually, it was a trust fund your mother established. I'm the trustee until my death. Was the trustee? I corrected myself. Now it's the Children's Fund trustee. All properly documented, all perfectly legal under South Carolina trust law. I'll sue? Ryan's voice shook with rage. I'll have you declared incompetent. You'll try, I interrupted, my voice finally hardening. I set down the gear, met his eyes directly. But here's what you should know, son. That little performance you just gave, about having me declared mentally unfit, I recorded every word. I gestured to the small device on my workbench, red light still blinking. Every threat, every admission that you've been planning this with a lawyer, every word about contesting my will, about manipulation, about viewing your 67-year-old father as nothing but an obstacle to money. I smiled, and this time there was no warmth in it. That'll play beautifully in court, don't you think? Tessa's hand flew to her mouth. Ryan just stared, his world visibly crumbling. You have two choices, I continued. Walk away right now, or try to fight this and discover exactly how much fight this old man has left in him. Because I promise you, Ryan, I'm not the doddering fool you've convinced yourself I am. This isn't over, Ryan snarled, grabbing Tessa's arm. This is far from over, old man. No, I said quietly as they turned to leave. This is just beginning. They slammed out. I waited until I heard their car screech away. Then I sat down slowly, suddenly feeling every one of my 67 years, but only for a moment. Then I picked up my phone and began making calls. I had work to do. 3 years earlier, December 2022. That's when I first noticed something was wrong. I was closing up my main shop on King Street when I saw Ryan and Tessa pull up in a brand new Tesla Model X Midnight Blue, top of the line. I knew because I'd looked at the same model myself and couldn't justify the $127,000 price tag. Ryan worked as a project manager at a small IT company. His salary was $78,000 a year. I knew this because he'd complained about it enough times, hinting that I should invest in his career advancement. The math didn't work. Over the next few weeks, I paid attention. Really paid attention the way you notice when a signature on a provenance document doesn't quite match the known exemplars. Little things. Tessa's new Hermes bag, $34,000, I checked. The Instagram posts from their Italian vacation, staying at hotels that ran $500 a night. Designer shoes, designer everything. I didn't say anything, not yet. But I started looking. My house on Battery Street is a 3-story Victorian I bought in 1985 for a fraction of what it's worth now. Ryan and Tessa had been living in the 3rd-floor apartment for 2 years, supposedly saving for their own place. I'd been fine with that. It was family. But family has a key to the house, and sometimes family thinks they have access to more than just living space. I discovered it by accident. I was cataloging items from my late wife's collection, pieces she'd inherited from her grandmother, things I'd planned to pass to Ryan someday. The mahogany secretary desk should have held 6 Meissen figurines. There were 5. I checked my records, checked again. Then I started looking at auction records. I found the Meissen Shepherdess at a Savannah auction house 3 months prior. Sold for $17,000. The consigner? Anonymous, but the lot description matched perfectly, down to the tiny chip on the base that I'd noted in my inventory. That's when I stopped being a father and started being an investigator. 6 pieces, total. A Dresden clock, 2 Royal Worcester vases, a pair of S-Fres plates, the Meissen Shepherdess, and a Chinese export porcelain bowl that my wife had cherished. Total value, $94,000. All sold through intermediaries at auction houses in Savannah and Atlanta over the past 18 months. My son had been stealing from his dead mother's collection, not to feed his family, not for medical emergencies, to fund a lifestyle he couldn't afford. I sat in my workshop for a long time that night, looking at my records, at the empty spaces where treasured objects should have been, at the proof of my son's betrayal, and I made a decision. Not revenge, not yet, but protection. I began documenting everything, photographing what remained, checking auction records systematically, and I started making quiet inquiries about estate planning attorneys who specialized in irrevocable trusts. I thought I was being thorough, thought I'd seen the full scope of the problem. I had no idea. Now, 2 days after that confrontation in my workshop, I sat in the office of Gregory Bernard Stone, attorney at law, on the 28th floor of the Wells Fargo Tower. His rates were $450 an hour, worth every penny. An irrevocable living trust, he said, reviewing the documents I'd brought. You want to restructure your entire estate? Everything, I confirmed. The 4 shops, the house, all assets. I'm the lifetime beneficiary. But after my death, it goes to charity, and my granddaughter Zoe, contingent on her completing college. And your son? $1. Symbolic. Gregory didn't flinch. Good lawyers don't. This is airtight once executed. You understand that? You won't be able to change it, even if you want to. That's the point. May I ask what prompted this? I slid another folder across his desk. That's why I need someone else, too. A private investigator. Someone who specializes in financial fraud. He opened the folder, scanned my documentation. His eyebrows rose slightly. I see. I can recommend someone. Barbara Sanders, former Charleston PD detective. She's expensive. $3,500 for a comprehensive investigation, but thorough. I don't care about the cost. I care about the truth. 2 hours later, I sat in a cramped office on Meeting Street, across from a woman in her early 60s, with sharp eyes and a firmer handshake. Barbara Sanders looked like somebody's grandmother. She investigated like a bloodhound. 6 pieces of stolen antiques, she said, reviewing my files. You want me to find out what else? Everything. Every financial transaction, every asset, every source of income. I want to know where my son got the money for a $127,000 car and a $34,000 vacation. I want documentation that would hold up in court. Court? She studied me carefully. You planning legal action? I'm planning to protect what I've built, whatever that takes. She nodded slowly. Give me 2 weeks. I'll need access to whatever you need. I want the truth, Ms. Sanders. All of it. I left her office as the sun was setting over Charleston Harbor. My phone buzzed. A text from Ryan. This isn't over. Talk to my lawyer next week. I smiled grimly. Let him try. 11 days later, Barbara called. Mr. Thompson, I think you'd better come to my office. I found something you need to see. The something was a manila folder, thick with documents. I sat across from her, my hands remarkably steady as I opened it. Your son has been busy, Barbara said quietly. The antiques were just the beginning. Inside were photocopies of loan documents, 4 of them. Each one showed my signature, acknowledging loans to Ryan totaling $215,000. Dated between 2020 and 2023. I'd never signed any of them, never made any such loans. Forgeries, I said flatly. Very good ones. He used different pens, different dates, varied the pressure. If you hadn't hired me, he could have presented these as legitimate debt instruments, claimed you owed him, that the money was repayment for past loans. Past loans that never existed. Exactly. She pulled out more documents. There's more. I tracked 12 additional antiques sold through various auction houses over the past 5 years. Total value, $178,000. Always through intermediaries, always cash payments, never reported as income. The numbers swam in front of me. How much total? Including the original 6 pieces you found. $487,000 in fraud, theft, and tax evasion. Maybe more that I haven't found yet. I sat back, feeling something cold and hard settle in my chest. Not anger. Anger was hot, explosive, temporary. This was something else, something calculated. He's been planning this for years, I said quietly. building a case, stealing from me while preparing to claim I owed him money. That would be my assessment, yes. I closed the folder carefully. Thank you, Ms. Sanders. Bill me for the full investigation. I'll need copies of everything. What are you going to do? I stood, picked up my coat. I'm going to play the long game, just like he taught me to. That night, I stood in my workshop surrounded by ticking clocks, each one marking time with perfect precision. Mechanical, predictable, inevitable. I picked up the French carriage clock I'd been restoring when Ryan burst in. Its mechanism was clean now, ready for assembly. I began fitting the gears together, one piece at a time, watching the system take shape. Ryan thought he was playing chess. He'd made his moves carefully, setting up what he thought was checkmate. But he'd forgotten something fundamental. I'd been authenticating forgeries and catching thieves since before he was born. I knew every trick, every con, every lie people told themselves when they wanted something that wasn't theirs, and I'd just spent 40 years building something worth protecting. My phone buzzed again, another text from Ryan. Lawyer says we have a strong case for incompetence. Donating $1 million? Obviously senile. See you in court, old man. I set down my tools and typed a reply. Looking forward to it. Then I called Gregory Stone. I need to accelerate the trust restructuring. How fast can we move? If you're willing to work weekends, 2 weeks, maybe 3. Make it 2. And Gregory, I'm going to need that documentation absolutely airtight, because this is about to get very ugly. I hung up and returned to my clock. The escapement mechanism clicked into place with satisfying precision, everything working exactly as designed. Cause and effect, action and reaction. Ryan wanted to play games with his inheritance? Fine. Let's see how he enjoyed inheriting exactly what he deserved. Barbara Sanders called me on March 18th, 6 days after I'd hired her. Mr. Thompson, I need you to come to my office. What I found, you'll want to see this in person. Her office on Meeting Street smelled like old coffee and determination. She spread documents across her desk, like a dealer showing a winning hand. 4 loan agreements, she said, sliding them toward me. Each one bearing your signature, dated between 2020 and 2023. Total amount, $215,000. I picked up the first document. The signature looked like mine, almost. The S in Stewart had a slightly different flourish. The pressure on the T was wrong. 40 years of signing certificates of authenticity had taught me to spot forgeries. I never signed these, I said flatly. I know. Barbara pulled out a magnified comparison. Your actual signature has consistent baseline pressure. These show hesitation marks. Someone copying slowly, carefully. Ryan's been practicing. What was his plan? Best I can figure? Present these as evidence that you owed him money. Claim the $1 million inheritance was actually repayment of debt. Make you look like you were refusing to honor legitimate loans. I set down the documents, feeling that cold calculation settle deeper into my chest. What else? 12 more antique pieces, sold through auction houses in Savannah and Atlanta over 5 years. She showed me the records. A pair of Imari vases, $23,000. Tiffany lamp, $41,000. Wedgwood tea service, $15,000. Should I continue? Total, $178,000. Combined with the original 6 pieces you discovered, that's $272,000 in stolen merchandise. Add the forged loans, $487,000 total. I sat back, doing the math. Nearly $500,000. My son had been systematically robbing me for years, building a paper trail to justify taking more. He's been planning this, I said quietly. Not just the theft. The whole thing. Make me look incompetent, claim I owed him money, take everything? That would be my assessment. Barbara's expression was professionally neutral, but I caught sympathy in her eyes. What do you want to do with this information? Keep investigating. Document everything. I'll need this ironclad. I left her office and drove straight to Gregory Stone's practice on the 28th floor of the Wells Fargo Tower. The view from his office stretched across Charleston Harbor, boats moving like clockwork mechanisms across the water. You're sure about this? Gregory asked, reviewing the trust documents. Once we execute this irrevocable living trust, you can't change it. Ever. That's the point. I signed the first page. My 4 antique shops on King Street. Current value $3,200,000. The house on Battery Street, $2,300,000. Additional assets and investments, $1,100,000. Total estate value, $6,600,000. And you want it structured so that you're the lifetime beneficiary, but upon your death, everything goes to the Charleston Children's Educational Fund and your granddaughter Zoe Thompson, contingent on her completing a 4-year college degree? Correct. Ryan gets $1. Symbolic inheritance. Gregory made a note. And if he contests? Can he? With you alive and demonstrably competent? Almost impossible. This is an irrevocable trust, properly executed with clear documentation of your mental capacity. He paused. Your son won't be happy. My son already tried to steal $500,000 from me. I stopped caring about his happiness. We worked through the afternoon, signing documents, notarizing forms, restructuring my entire life's work into something Ryan couldn't touch. With each signature, I felt the weight lifting. This wasn't just protection. This was a message. You wanted my money? Here's what you get. Nothing. That evening, I returned home to find Ryan and Tessa in the kitchen. My kitchen in my house, eating my food while plotting to take everything I'd built. Dad! Ryan's voice was too cheerful. We were just talking about you. How was your day? Productive, I said mildly, setting my briefcase on the counter. Inside were copies of every document from Barbara and Gregory. Yours? Tessa smiled that calculated smile. Oh, you know, just planning some updates to the house. The 3rd floor could really use renovations. Maybe we could discuss budget. The house is fine as it is. But Stuart, she pressed, at your age, maintaining a place this size, is my decision. I opened the refrigerator, pulled out leftovers. I'm 67, Tessa, not dead, not incompetent, not confused about who owns what. Ryan's expression flickered. Nobody said you were confused, Dad. Good, because I'd hate to think you were questioning my mental capacity right after demanding $1 million I don't legally owe you. The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. That money, Ryan started, was from your mother's trust fund, which I control as trustee until my death, which I can distribute however I see fit, including to charity. I turned to face him directly. Did you really think I didn't understand the law? Tessa recovered first. We just think at your age you should be enjoying retirement, not making major financial decisions alone. Maybe we could help. Help like you helped yourself to your mother-in-law's Meissen collection. The words came out quiet, precise. Or like you helped yourself to the Dresden clock? The Royal Worcester vases? Ryan went pale. Actually pale, his tan fading to ash in real time. I don't know what you're talking about, he stammered. Then you won't mind if I have my collection reappraised. For insurance purposes, of course. I smiled pleasantly. I'll need to account for anything missing, for my records. I left them standing there, carried my dinner upstairs to my workshop. Through the floorboards I heard urgent whispers, then footsteps, then their bedroom door slamming. Let them worry. Let them wonder what I knew, what I'd discovered, what I was planning. 2 days later, I found Tessa in my study. She jumped when I entered, nearly dropping the paper she was holding. Oh, Stuart, you startled me. I was just... But I'd already seen what she was holding. A torn piece of notepaper from my trash can. On it, in my handwriting, Trust Amendment, April 6th. Looking for something? I asked mildly. She set it down too quickly, too casually. Just tidying up. You know how I like to help. How helpful. Though usually one doesn't tidy by going through the garbage. I wasn't... Tessa. I picked up the paper, folded it carefully. I've been in the business of spotting fakes and thieves for 40 years. Don't insult either of us by pretending you're anything other than what you are. Her mask cracked. Just for a second I saw real calculation behind her eyes. Real intelligence assessing real danger. Ryan and I are family, she said carefully. We're just concerned about your future. About making sure you're protected. Protected from what? From making mistakes. From people who might take advantage. I laughed. Actually laughed. You're absolutely right. I should definitely protect myself from people trying to take advantage. Thank you for the reminder. I walked past her to my desk, pulled out my calendar, made a show of writing something down. She lingered, trying to see what I'd written. I angled it just enough that she couldn't. Was there something else? I asked. No, nothing else. She left, her heels clicking too fast on the hardwood. I looked down at my calendar. April 2nd was circled in red ink. The day Gregory would file the final trust documents. The day my entire estate would become legally untouchable. The day Ryan would discover he'd already lost the war he thought he was fighting. My phone buzzed. A text from Barbara Sanders. Found evidence of additional sales. Need to discuss. Can you come by tomorrow? I texted back, 10 a.m. Then I returned to my workbench, to the French carriage clock, waiting for its final assembly. Each gear had its place. Each spring its tension. Each mechanism its purpose. Everything working exactly as designed. The lawsuit arrived on April 1st. The irony wasn't lost on me. Ryan and Tessa had hired Richard Cole, a lawyer who advertised on billboards and specialized in elder law. The petition claimed I was suffering from senile dementia, evidenced by my irrational decision to donate $1 million to charity, and my increasingly erratic behavior. Gregory Stone read it in his office, his expression darkening with each page. "This is aggressive," he said. "They're requesting immediate psychiatric evaluation, potential emergency conservatorship, and suspension of your legal authority over your own affairs. Can they do this? They can try. The court date for the preliminary hearing is April 10th. They've fast-tracked it by claiming urgent need to protect you from yourself." He looked up. "Stewart, they're not playing around. If they convince a judge you're incompetent, then they get control of everything before the trust finalizes." Exactly. I sat back, thinking. Ryan was smarter than I'd given him credit for, or desperate. Probably both. What do we need? Medical documentation, independent evaluation from qualified physicians, proof that you're mentally sharp, legally competent, and making informed decisions. Gregory checked his calendar. "I can get you appointments with Dr. Patricia Williamson on April 5th and Dr. James Chen on April 8th. Both specialize in geriatric cognitive assessment. Their reports will be thorough." "Set it up." Meanwhile, Tessa was working her own angle. I discovered this on April 3rd, when my neighbor, Mrs. Henderson, stopped me outside Thompson's Antiques. "Stewart, dear, I'm so sorry to hear about your condition," she said, patting my hand with genuine concern. "If there's anything Richard and I can do—" "My condition?" "Tessa mentioned you've been having memory problems. Confusion. She said you nearly left the stove on last week, and you've been forgetting appointments." "Mrs. Henderson," I kept my voice gentle, "I've never left the stove on. I haven't forgotten a single appointment in 3 years. Tessa is lying." Her expression shifted from sympathy to uncertainty. "But why would she?" "That's an excellent question. Perhaps you should ask her." I left Mrs. Henderson looking troubled and drove to Dr. Williamson's office. For 90 minutes, she put me through every cognitive test in existence. Memory recall, pattern recognition, problem solving, spatial reasoning. "Mr. Thompson," she said afterward, reviewing the results, "you scored 29 out of 30 on the Montreal Cognitive Assessment. That's excellent for any age, exceptional for 67. Your executive function is sharp, your memory is intact, and you show no signs whatsoever of dementia or cognitive decline. Will you put that in writing?" Already drafting the report. 3 days later, Dr. Chen confirmed the same results. I walked out of his office with documentation that would eviscerate Ryan's case. But something was bothering me, something I couldn't quite identify. I found the answer that evening when my granddaughter Zoe knocked on my workshop door. At 16, she usually communicated through eye rolls and monosyllables. But tonight, she looked genuinely shaken. "Grandpa, can we talk?" "Of course." I set down my tools, gestured to the spare chair. "What's wrong?" She pulled out her phone, hesitated, then played an audio recording. Ryan's voice came through clearly. "The evaluation is April 24th. We just need him to seem confused, disoriented." Tessa: "How?" "There are medications, sedatives, just a small dose mixed into his evening tea. Nothing dangerous, just enough to make him fuzzy during the examination." "You want to drug your own father? I want what's ours, what we deserve. He's hoarding millions while we live on scraps. We live in his house, Ryan. A house that should be ours. Money that should be ours. If the old man won't share voluntarily, we'll force the issue. Once he's declared incompetent, I get power of attorney, and then—" Zoe stopped the recording. Her hands were shaking. "I was in my room," she whispered. They didn't know I was home. Grandpa, they're planning to drug you. They want to put you in a nursing home and take everything. I sat very still, processing this. Not surprised. I'd known Ryan was capable of theft. But this was different. This was calculated, premeditated harm. When did you record this? Last night, April 9th. The examination is supposed to be April 24th. She looked up at me with tears in her eyes. What are we going to do? We. Not you. We. My granddaughter, who I'd barely spoken to in years, who I'd dismissed as self-absorbed and shallow, had just chosen a side. My side. First, I said carefully, we're going to make sure you're safe. If your parents discover you recorded this, they won't. I'm careful. She wiped her eyes. I've been watching them, Grandpa. Really watching. Mom's been going through your stuff, taking pictures of documents. Dad's been meeting with lawyers every week. They talk about money constantly, about what they'll do when you're taken care of. How long has this been going on? Months? Maybe years. I just thought... Her voice cracked. I thought all families were like this, that everyone's parents talked about their grandparents like they were problems to solve instead of people. I reached across, squeezed her hand. Not all families. Not good ones. Are we a good family? You and I? We're going to be. I made 2 calls that night. First to Gregory Stone. Change the court-ordered evaluation date. Move it to April 26th. Don't inform opposing counsel until the last possible moment. That's irregular. Ryan and Tessa are planning to drug me before the April 24th examination. I have proof. Silence. Then, I'll file the motion tomorrow morning. Second call to Barbara Sanders. I need video surveillance equipment, something discreet for my bedroom and kitchen, and I need it installed tonight. What's happened? My son just graduated from theft to assault. I'm done playing defense. On April 24th, the day of the original examination, I stayed in my bedroom claiming illness. Through the door, I heard Tessa telling Ryan, "He won't come out. What do we do?" "Nothing we can do," Ryan said, frustrated. "We'll have to wait for the rescheduled date." "When is it?" "Day after tomorrow, April 26th. I smiled in my darkened room, listening to them realize their plan had failed. 2 days later, I drove to the psychiatric evaluation with Gregory beside me and documentation from 2 physicians in my briefcase. Dr. Judith Brown, the court-appointed psychiatrist, spent 3 hours testing me. At the end, she set down her pen and looked at me directly. "Mr. Thompson, I'm going to be frank. Whoever filed this petition claiming you're mentally incompetent is either grossly misinformed or deliberately lying. You show no signs of cognitive impairment, dementia, or diminished capacity. Your judgment is sound, your reasoning is clear, and your decision-making ability is completely intact. Will you tell that to the court? I'll do better. I'll recommend the petition be dismissed with prejudice." The hearing on May 3rd lasted 14 minutes. The judge read Dr. Brown's report, reviewed the documentation from Drs. Williamson and Chen, and looked at Ryan's lawyer, with barely concealed irritation. "Mr. Cole, this petition is not only without merit, it's borderline frivolous. Motion dismissed." Ryan's face went through several colors, none of them healthy. Outside the courthouse, he grabbed my arm. "This isn't over." I removed his hand gently but firmly. "Yes, it is." That evening, Zoe texted me, "Package arrived for Dad. IRS logo. He's freaking out." I smiled, remembering my conversation with Barbara Sanders 2 weeks earlier. "The unreported income from the antique sales," she'd said. "That's tax evasion. Federal crime. Can you document it?" "Already have. Question is, what do you want to do with it?" "Send it to the IRS. Let them handle it." Now, standing in my workshop with 23 restored clocks ticking around me, I picked up my phone and called Ryan. "We need to talk," he said immediately. "Dad, I just got a letter from the IRS. About the $272,000 in unreported income from selling my antiques?" "Yes, I imagine you did." Silence. "You wanted independence, Ryan. Congratulations. You're about to discover exactly what that means." I hung up. Zoe was right. This was just the beginning. Zoe's recording changed everything. I listened to it 3 times in my workshop, each replay making my jaw tighten. My own son discussing drugging me like I was a problem to be managed rather than a person. The casual cruelty in his voice. That was what hurt most. "April 11th, I told Gregory Stone over the phone. We need to move the court-ordered evaluation. Today. On what grounds? New evidence of tampering. I'll explain when I see you. By noon, Gregory had filed an emergency motion citing concerns about examination integrity. The court rescheduled for April 26th, 2 days after Ryan's planned sabotage. Better yet, Ryan's lawyer wouldn't be notified until April 23rd. I spent those days preparing, not just legally, but strategically. Zoe had become my eyes and ears in the enemy camp. She'd text me updates. Mom bought something at pharmacy. Sleeping pills. Or, Dad keeps checking calendar, looking nervous. On April 24th, the original examination date, I stayed in my bedroom. When Tessa knocked around breakfast time, I called through the door. Not feeling well? Think I caught something? Oh, no. Her voice dripped false sympathy. Can I bring you tea? Maybe some soup? No, thank you. I just need rest. Through the surveillance camera I'd had Barbara install, I watched Tessa and Ryan in the kitchen. She crushed 2 pills into a cup of tea, stirred carefully. They waited by my door for 20 minutes before giving up. He's not coming out, Ryan hissed. The evaluation is in 3 hours. Maybe he's actually sick? Or maybe he knows. Ryan's paranoia was showing. Good. I spent the day reading, listening to their frustrated pacing below. Around dinner time, Zoe knocked. 3 short taps, our signal. Come in. She entered carrying a sandwich and water. They're freaking out downstairs. Mom thinks you're avoiding them. Dad's worried you're planning something. Smart boy, my son. Shame he uses his intelligence poorly. She sat on the edge of my bed, looking younger than 16. Grandpa, when this is over, will we still be a family? The question hit harder than expected. You and I will always be family, Zoe. Your parents made their choices. We're living with the consequences. I recorded another conversation. Do you want to hear it? Always. This one was from that morning. Tessa's voice. I can't believe this isn't working. We tried everything, the lawsuit, the rumors, now this. What if he really is sharper than we thought? Ryan. Then we go to plan B, the nursing home angle. Once he's isolated, we can work on getting conservatorship through other means. I stopped the recording. They're not going to stop. No, Zoe agreed quietly. They need the money too badly. Dad's in debt, like really bad debt. I heard him on the phone with someone threatening legal action. Something about cryptocurrency? The pieces clicked together. 347,000 in crypto losses. That's what Barbara had found in her investigation. Ryan wasn't just greedy, he was desperate. Desperate people make mistakes. April 26th arrived. I dressed carefully. Khakis, button-down shirt, my good watch. Professional, but not overly formal. I wanted to look exactly like what I was, a competent businessman in full control of his faculties. Dr. Judith Brown's office was downtown Neutral Territory. She was 50-ish, sharp-eyed, with the kind of directness I appreciated. Mr. Thompson, I've reviewed the petition claiming you're mentally incompetent. I've also seen your independent evaluations from Drs. Williamson and Chen. Both excellent. Today, I'll conduct my own assessment. For 3 hours, she tested everything. Memory, I recited my phone number from 1985, my first employee's name, the exact date I bought my first shop. Problem solving, she gave me scenarios. I solved them systematically. Judgment, she asked about my financial decisions. I explained my charitable donation with clear, rational reasoning. The $1 million donation, she said. Your son claims this proves incompetence. Your thoughts? My son believes any money not given to him is wasted. I disagree. Charleston Children's Educational Fund will help hundreds of kids over 20 years. That seems like a better legacy than funding my son's cryptocurrency gambling. She didn't smile, but her pen moved quickly across her notepad. At the end, she set down her materials and looked at me directly. Mr. Thompson, you're one of the sharpest 67-year-olds I've examined. Your cognitive function is excellent, your reasoning is sound, and your decision-making shows careful consideration. Whoever filed this petition is either misinformed or deliberately misrepresenting your condition. I suspect the latter. So do I. She stood, extended her hand. I'll submit my report by May 1st. It will recommend dismissal of the incompetency claim with prejudice. I shook her hand. Thank you, Doctor. Back home, I found Ryan pacing in my study. He jumped when I entered. How did it go? he asked, too casual. Fine. Dr. Brown was thorough. And I'll know the results when the court does. I walked to my desk, began sorting through mail. Interesting that you're so concerned about my mental health, Ryan. Almost like you have a vested interest in the outcome. His face flushed. You're my father. Of course I care. About the money. You care about the money. I opened an envelope. Bill from the landscaper. Speaking of which, have you given any thought to how you'll support yourself when you move out? Move out? This is my home. This is my home. You're a guest. An increasingly unwelcome one. He started to respond, but my phone rang. Barbara Sanders. Stewart, I've filed the IRS referral. They move fast on tax evasion cases, especially ones this well documented. Excellent. Thank you, Barbara. I hung up. Ryan was staring at me, something like fear creeping into his expression. Who was that? Business call, I smiled pleasantly. You know how it is. Always something needing attention. He left without another word. May 3rd, the court hearing lasted 14 minutes. Dr. Brown's report was devastating to Ryan's case. No evidence of cognitive impairment. Subject demonstrates excellent mental acuity, sound judgment, and full understanding of his financial decisions. Petition appears motivated by factors other than genuine concern for subject's welfare. The judge didn't even pretend to be neutral. Motion dismissed with prejudice. Mr. Thompson, I apologize for your time being wasted. Outside the courthouse, Ryan grabbed my arm. His face was blotchy, desperate. This isn't over. I removed his hand with the same care I'd use handling a delicate antique. Yes, Ryan, it is. 4 days later, May 7th, the IRS letter arrived. Zoe texted me a photo. Her father, white-faced, holding an official envelope. The text read, Notice of Audit, Unreported Income Investigation. I was in my workshop when Ryan called. Dad, I need help. The IRS, they're saying I owe $94,000 in back taxes plus penalties. I don't have that kind of money. That's unfortunate. Unfortunate? Dad, this is serious. They could charge me criminally. Then you probably shouldn't have sold $272,000 worth of stolen antiques without reporting the income. Silence. Long, heavy silence. You knew, he whispered. All this time, you knew. I know everything, Ryan. Every piece you stole. Every document you forged. Every lie you told. I set down my tools, gave him my full attention. You wanted independence? Here it is. Handle your own problems. But I'm your son. You stopped being my son when you started being a thief. I hung up. That night, I couldn't sleep. Not from guilt. I'd made my peace with my decisions. But from something else. A strange hollowness where fatherly love used to be. Zoe found me in the kitchen at 2 a.m., staring at old photo albums. Can't sleep either? She asked. Looking at pictures of your father when he was young, trying to remember when he changed, or if he was always like this and I just didn't see it. She sat beside me, looked at the photos. Ryan at 8, gap-toothed and grinning. Ryan at 16, sullen and entitled. Ryan at 25, already calculating. I think people show you who they are, Zoe said quietly. We just don't always want to believe it. Smart kid, smarter than her father ever was. May 8th, Ryan showed up at Thompson's Antiques just before closing. I was cataloging a new acquisition, a Georgian tea service. Genuine silver, beautiful craftsmanship. The kind of thing Ryan would have stolen and sold if given the chance. We need to talk, he said. We really don't. Dad, please. The IRS audit. I need a tax attorney. They're expensive. I'm asking for help. I set down the teapot carefully. You want money? I want my father to act like family. Family? I tasted the word. Interesting concept. Does family steal from each other? Forge documents? Plot to have their elderly parents declared incompetent? He had the grace to flinch. I made mistakes. You made choices. There's a difference. I returned to my inventory. You have 2 options, Ryan. Hire your own attorney or accept whatever plea deal the IRS offers. Either way, you handle it yourself. You cold-hearted... He stopped himself, fists clenched. You're really going to let your own son go to prison? You're really going to pretend you wouldn't do the same to me if the positions were reversed? He left, slamming the door hard enough to rattle the display cases. Tessa tried a different approach. She showed up at the house on May 12th, tears ready. dressed in her respectable daughter-in-law outfit. "Stuart, we need to talk about Ryan. He's struggling. He's reaping what he sowed. But we're family. You can't just abandon him in his time of need." I looked at her, really looked at her. The designer bag she couldn't afford. The highlights in her hair that cost more than most people's weekly grocery budget. The calculated tears that appeared and disappeared on command. "Tessa, drop the act. We both know you don't care about Ryan. You care about access to money you think should be yours." Her expression shifted. The mask cracked, and I saw the real calculation underneath. "You're making a mistake," she said, voice hardening. "Ryan is your only child. When I die, he gets exactly $1. Everything else goes to Charity and Zoe. It's all in writing, legally binding, impossible to contest." I smiled. "Didn't you get Gregory Stone's letter?" That stopped her cold. "What letter?" "The one explaining the irrevocable trust restructuring. Should have arrived last week." I checked my watch. "Actually, should have arrived June 1st. My mistake. That's next week." Her face went through several interesting colors. I continued, enjoying this more than I probably should. All 4 shops, the house on Battery Street, my investments, my collections, total value approximately $6.6 million. Upon my death, it's split between Charleston Children's Educational Fund and Zoe's Educational Trust. Ryan gets a symbolic inheritance of $1. That's not legal. You can't disinherit your child. In South Carolina, I absolutely can, especially when I have documentation of his theft, fraud, and conspiracy to have me declared incompetent. I leaned back. Gregory was very thorough. The trust is airtight. She left without another word, but I knew this wasn't over. June 1st arrived exactly on schedule. Gregory Stone sent the official notification via certified mail to Ryan and Tessa. I got a copy the same day. 47 pages of legal documentation, every clause designed to be unbreakable. Ryan called within an hour of receiving it. "You can't do this," he screamed. "That's my inheritance. You're my father. And you're my thief." My voice stayed level, calm. "Everything is legal, Ryan. Everything is documented. You want to contest it? Go ahead. Spend money you don't have on lawyers who will tell you the same thing Gregory already has. You lost. But why? Why are you doing this?" The question actually surprised me. "You really don't know?" "I made some mistakes, but everyone makes mistakes. You're punishing me for being human." "I'm protecting what I built from someone who views it as nothing more than his personal bank account." I paused, considering my next words carefully. "That $1 million you demanded? The one I donated to charity? What about it?" "It wasn't my money, Ryan. It was your mother's trust fund. She set it up for you with one condition, that I distribute it when I felt you were mature enough to handle it responsibly." Silence. "I was supposed to decide when you'd grown up enough, when you'd proven yourself, when you'd shown you understood the value of money beyond what it could buy you." I let that sink in. "Instead, you stole from her collection, forged my signature, tried to have me declared incompetent. So I made a decision. You'll never be mature enough. The money went to children who might actually deserve it." "That wasn't yours to give away." "I was the trustee. It was entirely mine to give away. I chose children's education over your cryptocurrency debts. I chose the future over your past mistakes." His breathing came harsh through the phone. "You're going to regret this." "I don't think I will." I hung up, but I was wrong about that, not about the decision. I'd never regret protecting my assets, but about the cost. That night, I sat in my workshop surrounded by my restored clocks, listening to their synchronized ticking. 23 timepieces, each one representing hours of careful work, each one a reminder that broken things can be fixed. Except this. This was broken beyond repair. Zoe knocked softly. "Grandpa, Mom and Dad are fighting, really fighting." She's talking about divorce. I'm not surprised. She said something about going after Dad's inheritance rights in the divorce. I didn't understand it, but Dad looked scared. "She can't. The trust is clear. He gets $1, period. Even in divorce, she can't claim half of $1 that doesn't exist yet." "Oh!" She sat down, picked up a gear from my workbench. "Grandpa, do you think they ever loved each other? Or was it always about money?" "I think Tessa loved what she thought Ryan could provide. And Ryan loved having someone who validated his entitlement. I took the gear from her, fitted it back into the clock mechanism. Not the same as loving each other. Like you and Grandma? The question caught me off guard. I rarely talked about her, even with Zoe. Your grandmother and I built something real. We worked for it, sacrificed for it, earned it together. That's what makes it worth protecting. I miss her. So do I. June 10th. I invited Ryan to the house. Not out of kindness, out of necessity. Some things need to be said face to face. He arrived looking haggard. The IRS audit was taking its toll. Good. Dad, I've been thinking... Stop. I held up a hand. I need to tell you something. That $1 million, the one you demanded, the one I donated, I need you to understand what it really was. You already told me. Mom's trust fund. Yes. But do you know why she created it? Why she insisted on that specific structure? He shook his head. Because she was worried about you. Even then, 15 years ago, she saw the signs. The entitlement. The shortcuts. The belief that you deserve success without earning it. I kept my voice steady. She loved you enough to protect you from yourself. She set up the trust with conditions because she hoped you'd grow, change, mature. She didn't trust me. She hoped for you. There's a difference. I stood, walked to the window overlooking the harbor. I hoped too. Even after I discovered the first thefts, I hoped you'd come to me, confess, make it right. But you didn't. You escalated. You got worse. You started forging documents, planning to have me institutionalized. I was desperate. You were greedy. I turned to face him. The $1 million. That was her final test. I could give it to you, or I could make a choice that honored her real wishes, that the money do some good in the world. I chose the children. I chose her legacy over your debt. His face crumbled. Real emotion, finally. Not manipulation, not performance. Real grief. I destroyed everything, didn't I? Yes. Can I fix it? I considered lying. Considered giving him hope. A path forward. A chance at redemption. But that would be cruel in its own way. I don't know, Ryan. I honestly don't know. He left. This time, no threats. No anger. Just defeat. And I felt it too. Victory without joy. Justice without satisfaction. The price of being right, I suppose. Barbara Sanders delivered her final report on June 16th. 47 pages of documentation, photographs, financial records, and recorded conversations. The evidence was comprehensive, damning, and completely irrefutable. $487,000, she said, summarizing. $272,000 in stolen antiques, $215,000 in forged loan documents, 5 years of systematic fraud. I sat in my workshop, the report spread across my workbench like pieces of a clock waiting to be assembled. Each page fit perfectly into place, creating a complete picture of my son's betrayal. What do you want to do with this? Barbara asked. I had 3 options. File criminal charges. Ryan would face prison time, possibly 5 to 10 years for fraud and forgery. Use it as leverage. Force him to repay everything. Ruin him financially, but keep it private. Or option 3. I'm going to give him a choice, I said finally, but not the one he expects. July 3rd. I scheduled a family meeting for 2 p.m., not at Gregory Stone's office, at my home, 1847 Battery Street, my territory, my rules. I invited Gregory and Ted Harris, the notary I'd known for 15 years. Ted arrived early, settling into the study with the calm demeanor of someone who'd witnessed thousands of difficult family moments. You sure about this, Stuart? He asked. Completely. Gregory arrived next, carrying a briefcase full of documents. Everything's ready. You understand, this is essentially a settlement agreement. Once they sign, it's binding. That's the point. At exactly 2 p.m., Ryan, Tessa, and Zoe walked in. Ryan looked haggard. The IRS audit was taking its toll. Tessa wore her armor, designer dress, perfect makeup, the smile that never reached her eyes. Zoe hung back, avoiding eye contact with her parents. What's this about, Dad? Ryan asked, eyeing Gregory and Ted with suspicion. Sit. I gestured to the dining room table. We have business to discuss. I began laying out documents, slowly, methodically, like dealing cards in a game where I held all the aces. First, Barbara's investigation report. Ryan's face went pale as I flipped through the pages. $487,000, I said quietly. That's what you've stolen from me over 5 years. Every item documented, every sale traced, every forged signature analyzed. Dad, I can explain. No, I cut him off. You can listen. Next, photographs of the forged loan documents with expert analysis showing the forgeries. Bank statements showing the cryptocurrency losses. $347,000 gone in bad investments. You weren't just greedy, Ryan. You were desperate, drowning in debt, trying to maintain a lifestyle you couldn't afford, stealing from your own father to cover your gambling. Tessa spoke up, voice sharp. This is ridiculous. You're fabricating evidence too. I played an audio file. Her voice, clear as day. Once he's isolated, we can work on getting conservatorship through other means. Her mouth snapped shut. That's from April 9th, I said. The night you and Ryan discussed drugging me before the psychiatric evaluation. The night you planned to have me committed to a nursing home so you could control my assets. Ryan's hands were shaking. How did you? Zoe recorded it, along with several other conversations. I looked at my granddaughter. She met my eyes steadily, chin up. Brave kid. I spread out the rest. IRS documentation, the trust restructuring papers, surveillance footage from my own security cameras showing Ryan searching my study, Tessa going through my files. Here's what's going to happen, I said. You have two choices. Choice one, I take all of this to the police. You face criminal charges for fraud, forgery, theft, conspiracy, and attempted elder abuse. You'll both likely serve prison time. Tessa's carefully composed expression cracked. Real fear showed through. Choice two, you sign this document. Gregory slid the settlement agreement across the table. You acknowledge the debt of $487,000. You relinquish all claims to any inheritance from me, now or in the future. You move out of this house within 30 days. In exchange, I don't press charges, and I pay $50,000 toward a tax attorney to help Ryan with the IRS audit. $50,000? Tessa's voice rose. That's nothing. You owe us. I owe you nothing. My voice stayed level, but cold. You have stolen from me, lied to me, conspired against me, and attempted to have me declared incompetent. $50,000 to keep you both out of prison is more generosity than you deserve. Ryan was reading the document, his face growing paler with each paragraph. This says we have to pay back the $487,000. Over time. Structured payment plan. No interest if you make regular payments. Miss a payment, and I reserve the right to file criminal charges based on this evidence. We can't afford. Then you'll figure it out. Get second jobs. Sell your possessions. Live within your means for the first time in your adult lives. I leaned back. Or choose option one and learn to live in a prison cell. Tessa turned to Ryan. Don't sign this. He's bluffing. He won't actually send his own son to prison. Want to test that theory? I met her eyes. I've already lost my son. He died the moment he decided stealing from me was acceptable. What's left is a thief wearing my son's face. I have no qualms about prosecuting a thief. The room went silent except for the ticking of the antique grandfather clock in the corner. Ted Harris, the notary, spoke up quietly. I've known Stuart for 15 years. I've never known him to bluff. Ryan picked up the pen. His hand trembled so badly he could barely hold it. Ryan, don't! Tessa started. We don't have a choice, he snapped at her. We sign this or we go to prison. Is that what you want? For once, Tessa had no response. Ryan signed. Each stroke of the pen looked like it physically hurt him. Tessa signed next, her signature an angry slash across the page. Ted notarized it. Gregory collected the copies. It was done. You have until August 2nd to vacate the premises, I said. Take only what belongs to you. Everything else stays. Ryan stood, legs unsteady. You win, Dad. Happy now? I looked at him, really looked at him. At the son I'd raised, the man he'd become, the stranger standing in front of me. No, Ryan, I'm not happy, but I'm at peace. They left. Tessa was already arguing with Ryan before they reached their car. Zoe lingered in the doorway. Thank you, she said quietly, for not making me testify or anything. You've done enough, more than enough. I squeezed her shoulder. Your college fund is secure. That's a promise. After everyone left, I sat alone in my study, the signed documents in front of me. Victory, but hollow. Justice, but joyless. I'd won. But winning felt a lot like losing. The moving truck arrived on July 21st, 8 days before the deadline. I watched from my workshop window as Ryan and Tessa loaded their belongings. Not as much as they probably expected. Most of the expensive furniture belonged to the house. Most of the valuable items were from collections they'd already stolen from. What they had left fit into a medium-sized U-Haul. Zoe sat in my workshop with me, neither of us speaking, just watching. "They're going to an apartment in Mount Pleasant," she said finally. "Two-bedroom, $18.50 a month. Mom's furious about it." "How are you handling all this?" She shrugged, a gesture that tried for casual and missed. "It's weird. Like I knew they were selfish, but I didn't know they were that. People surprise us, not always pleasantly." "Are you okay, Grandpa?" The question caught me off guard. "I'm managing." "That's not what I asked." "Smart kid." "Too smart sometimes." "I don't know," I admitted. "I did what I had to do. Protected what I built. But it doesn't feel like winning." "Because you lost your son in the process?" "Because I discovered I never really had him to begin with." We sat in silence until the truck pulled away. Ryan didn't look back. Tessa stared straight ahead, her phone already out, probably posting something on social media about new beginnings or some other carefully crafted fiction. The house felt bigger with them gone, emptier, but also cleaner somehow, like removing a stain you'd gotten so used to that you'd stopped seeing it. Over the next few weeks, I settled into a new routine. Zoe came by 3 times a week. We'd work on college applications, discuss her future, talk about anything except her parents. I'd promised to pay for her education, $280,000 for 4 years at the University of South Carolina. And watching her plan her future gave me more joy than any revenge ever could. "I think I want to study psychology," she told me in early August. "Understand why people do the things they do." "That's a good field. Important." "Did you always want to work with antiques?" "No. I started as an appraiser at auction houses. Learned to spot fakes, understand value, recognize quality. It was only later that I fell in love with the restoration work." I gestured to my workshop. "There's something satisfying about taking something broken and making it work again." "Can you fix people the same way?" "I don't know. Maybe some people don't want to be fixed." Ryan tried one last time on August 15th. He showed up alone, without Tessa, looking like he'd aged 10 years in a month. "Can we talk?" he asked at my door. I let him in, not out of forgiveness, out of curiosity. We sat in the study. He looked around at the antiques, the books, the life I'd built, his inheritance once upon a time, now a museum of what he'd lost. "I wanted to apologize," he said. "Really apologize. Not because I want something, but because I need you to know I understand now. What I did, what I threw away." I said nothing. Let him talk. "Tessa's filing for divorce. She wants half of everything, including," he laughed bitterly, "my inheritance rights from you. Her lawyer tried to argue that my future inheritance had value. Your lawyer shut that down pretty fast." "Gregory's thorough." "Yeah." Ryan rubbed his face. "I'm looking for a new job. The IT company let me go. Said something about reputation concerns. Tessa's already telling everyone her version of the story, making me the villain. Which is funny, because I actually was the villain, just not the way she's telling it." "What do you want, Ryan?" "I wanted to tell you that you were right. About everything. I do regret what I did. Not just the consequences, the actual actions. I stole from you. I plotted against you. I treated you like an ATM instead of a person." He met my eyes. "I wanted to say I'm sorry, even though I know it doesn't change anything." I studied him, looking for the con, the angle, the manipulation, but all I saw was exhaustion and genuine regret. "You're right," I said finally. "It doesn't change anything. If you'd come to me a year ago before the stealing escalated, before the forgeries, before you tried to have me committed, maybe we could have worked something out. But you made your choices. These are the consequences." "I know." He stood to leave, then paused. "For what it's worth, Mom would be ashamed of me. I know that now." After he left, I sat alone with those words. Would she? My late wife had loved Ryan fiercely, but she'd also been the one to insist on the trust structure, the conditions, the safeguards. She'd known even then that her son might need protecting from himself. I pulled out the documents for the scholarship fund I was establishing in her name. $200,000 to fund art history students. Her passion, her legacy. The paperwork was almost complete. Late that night, Zoe texted me. Mom officially filed for divorce today. Wants half of Dad's future inheritance. How's that going to work? I called her instead of texting back. Your father's future inheritance is $1, I explained. Under South Carolina law, your mother can claim half of that. So, 50 cents? Exactly. She laughed. Actually laughed. That's perfect. That's absolutely perfect. Your mother will figure that out eventually. Probably around the time her lawyer explains why pursuing it will cost more in legal fees than she could possibly gain. Grandpa, can I ask you something? Do you think they ever actually loved each other, Dad and Mom? I thought about that. About the wedding 13 years ago. About the early years. About watching them slowly poison each other with greed and resentment. I think they loved the idea of each other. Ryan loved having someone who validated his entitlement. Tessa loved having access to what she thought was money and status. But real love, the kind that weathers hardship and chooses the other person's good over your own comfort? No, I don't think they ever had that. That's sad. It is. But it's also a lesson about what not to build a life on. Did you and Grandma have that? Real love? We did. We built something together, brick by brick, choice by choice. That's what made it real. On September 12th, the divorce hearing happened. Gregory attended as my representative. Technically, I had no stake in it, but given that Tessa was trying to claim Ryan's inheritance, my lawyer needed to be present. He called me afterward. The judge took about 30 seconds to dismiss Tessa's claim to Ryan's inheritance. Pointed out that since the inheritance is currently set at $1 and won't exist until your death, there's nothing to divide. Tessa's lawyer looked like he wanted to sink through the floor. Good. Stuart, Ryan's coming out of this with nothing. No wife, no money, no prospects. Just debt and a damaged reputation. You won. Completely. I hung up and stared out at Charleston Harbor. Ships moving through the water, constant motion, life continuing regardless of human drama. Victory. Total. Absolute victory. So why did it feel so empty? September 2nd, Zoe texted me while I was cataloging a new shipment of Victorian silverware at the shop. Mom filed for divorce this morning. She's claiming Dad has future inheritance rights worth millions. Her lawyer thinks they can get half. I set down the Georgian tea service I was examining and called Gregory Stone. Tessa filed, I said without preamble. She's going after Ryan's inheritance? The $1 inheritance? Gregory sounded amused. This should be interesting. Can she actually? No, absolutely not. South Carolina is an equitable distribution state, but you can't distribute assets that don't exist. Ryan's inheritance is currently $1, and it won't exist until your death. There's nothing to divide. So she'll lose, spectacularly. The hearing was set for September 12th. I didn't attend. Gregory represented my interests as a third party. He called me afterward, and I could hear the smile in his voice. The judge took approximately 30 seconds to dismiss Tessa's claim. He actually said, and I quote, "You cannot claim half of a theoretical future inheritance of $1. Motion denied." Gregory paused. Tessa's attorney looked like he wanted to disappear through the floor. I suspect he advised against this approach, and she insisted anyway. What about the rest of the divorce? Proceeding. Ryan has nothing. No assets, just debt. Tessa will get whatever settlement she can, which amounts to very little. They're both leaving this marriage with less than they brought into it. After hanging up, I sat in my workshop, surrounded by the quiet ticking of my clock collection. Ryan had lost everything. His wife, his home, his inheritance, his reputation, everything. I'd won completely. So why did I feel so empty? September 18th. I was at the office of the Charleston Arts Foundation, finalizing the scholarship fund I'd been planning for months. $200,000 in initial funding, dedicated to students studying art history, my late wife's passion. The foundation director, a woman named Patricia Chambers, reviewed the documents with genuine warmth. "This is extraordinarily generous, Mr. Thompson. The Margaret Thompson Memorial Scholarship will help dozens of students over the years." Margaret. My wife's name, spoken aloud after so many months of avoiding it. The grief hit unexpectedly, sharp and clean. She would have liked this, I said quietly. She always said art history teaches you to see the value in things other people overlook. A beautiful philosophy, Patricia smiled. We'll announce this at our annual gala in November. I hope you'll attend. I'll be there. That evening, Zoe came by for dinner. At 16, she was becoming the person her parents had never been. Thoughtful, genuine, hardworking. We'd spent the summer working on college applications, and the results were coming in. USC accepted me, she said, trying to contain her excitement. Early admission, full consideration for their psychology program. That's wonderful. I meant it. Your mother's alma mater would be... I stopped myself. Your grandmother would be proud. I want to understand people, why they do what they do, make better choices than... She trailed off, but I knew what she meant. Than your parents? Yeah. She picked at her pasta. Dad called me yesterday. He's working at a call center now, $18 an hour. He said he's sorry, that he understands what he lost. Do you believe him? I think he understands he lost stuff. I don't know if he understands what he lost. She looked up at me. Does that make sense? Perfect sense. There's a difference between regretting consequences and regretting actions. We finished dinner talking about her classes, her friends, her plans. Normal conversation, normal life. The kind of normalcy I hadn't realized I'd been missing. September 20th. The invitation arrived by courier. Charleston Children's Educational Fund Annual Gala. September 23rd, Charleston Yacht Club. Special recognition for major donors. I knew what this was. The public announcement of my $1 million donation. The donation made in Ryan's name. Part of me wanted to skip it. The revenge was complete. What was the point of this final public humiliation? But another part of me knew I needed to see this through. Not for revenge, for closure. I called the foundation, confirmed my attendance. Then I went up to my workshop and opened the drawer where I'd been collecting things over the past months. Barbara's investigation report, the settlement agreement Ryan had signed, the trust documents, the charitable donation receipt, 7 months of careful planning, 7 months of protecting what I'd built. I added one more item, the invitation to the gala. Then I closed the drawer and returned to my workbench, where an English carriage clock from 1823 waited for restoration. Its mechanism was frozen, corroded by time and neglect, but the bones were good. The craftsmanship was solid. Some things could be saved, some things couldn't. I picked up my tools and got to work. 3 days. 3 days until the final act of this long, sad story. 3 days until I could finally close this chapter and move forward. September 2nd. Zoe texted me while I was cataloging a new shipment of Victorian silverware at Thompson's Antiques on King Street. Mom filed for divorce this morning. She's claiming Dad has future inheritance rights worth millions. Her lawyer thinks they can get half. I set down the Georgian tea service I was examining, 1820s. Beautiful craftsmanship, worth about $42,000 to the right collector, and called Gregory Stone. Tessa filed, I said without preamble. She's going after Ryan's inheritance. The $1 inheritance? Gregory sounded genuinely amused. This should be interesting. Let me guess. Her lawyer is claiming that future inheritance has present value that should be divided in the divorce settlement? That's exactly what Zoe said. It won't work. Can't work, actually. South Carolina is an equitable distribution state, but you can't distribute assets that don't exist. Ryan's inheritance is currently $1, and it won't materialize until your death, which hopefully won't be for many years. There's literally nothing to divide. So she'll lose. Spectacularly. I'll file an amicus brief explaining the trust structure. This should be over quickly. The hearing was set for September 12th at the Charleston County Courthouse. I didn't attend. Gregory represented my interests as a third party with standing due to the trust structure. He called me at the shop afterward, and I could hear the smile in his voice. Stuart, you would have enjoyed this. The judge took approximately 30 seconds to dismiss Tessa's claim. He actually said, and I quote, Counselor, you cannot claim half of a theoretical future inheritance of $1 that may or may not ever exist. This is not a marital asset. Motion denied. Gregory paused, clearly savoring the memory. Tessa's attorney looked like he wanted to disappear through the floor. I suspect he strongly advised against this approach, and she overruled him. What about the rest of the divorce? Proceeding normally. Ryan has virtually no assets. Just debt, actually. The IRS settlement, the acknowledged debt to you, credit card balances. Tessa will get whatever equitable settlement she can negotiate, which amounts to very little. They're both leaving this marriage with significantly less than they brought into it. Poetic justice? Indeed. Oh, and Stewart. Ryan's attorney tried one last maneuver, claiming you used undue influence to manipulate Ryan into signing the settlement agreement. Judge dismissed that too. You had witnesses, documentation, and Ryan's own recorded statements about stealing from you. The case is airtight. After hanging up, I sat alone in my office above the shop, surrounded by antiques that had survived centuries. Some were worth fortunes. Some were beautiful but ultimately valueless. The trick was knowing the difference. Ryan had lost everything. His wife, his home, his inheritance, his reputation, his future. Everything. I'd won. Completely. Totally. Absolutely. So why did I feel so hollow? September 18th brought me to the Charleston Arts Foundation offices in the Historic District. I was finalizing the scholarship fund I'd been planning for months. $200,000 in initial funding, dedicated to students studying art history. The foundation director, Patricia Chambers, an elegant woman in her 50s with genuine warmth, reviewed the documents with careful attention. "This is extraordinarily generous, Mr. Thompson. The Margaret Thompson Memorial Scholarship will help dozens of students over the years. 3 full scholarships annually, with the potential for more as the endowment grows." Margaret, my wife's name, spoken aloud in official context after so many months of avoiding it. The grief hit unexpectedly, sharp, clean, still painful after all these years. She would have liked this, I managed. She always said art history teaches you to see the value in things other people overlook, to understand that worth isn't always obvious or immediate. A beautiful philosophy, and very relevant to your own profession, I imagine. Patricia smiled. "We'll announce this at our annual gala in November. I hope you'll attend." "I'll be there." Walking back to my car, I thought about Margaret, about the trust fund she'd set up for Ryan, hoping he'd mature enough to deserve it, about the tests she'd built in, the conditions she'd created, all because she loved him enough to protect him from himself. She'd been gone 8 years. Sometimes it felt like yesterday, sometimes like a lifetime. That evening, Zoe came to the house on Battery Street for dinner, our new Thursday tradition. At 16, she was becoming someone I genuinely admired. Thoughtful, genuine, hardworking. Everything her parents weren't. We'd spent the summer working on college applications together. SAT prep, essay editing, scholarship research. The results were starting to come in. USC accepted me, she announced over pasta, trying and failing to contain her excitement. Early admission, full consideration for their psychology program. They specifically mentioned my essay about family dynamics and personal growth. "That's wonderful, Zoe. Truly." I raised my glass of water and a toast. "Your grandmother would be so proud. I want to understand people, why they do what they do, why some people grow and change, and others just don't." She picked at her fettuccine. "Maybe help people make better choices than my parents did." Noble goal. "Dad called me yesterday," she said quietly. "He's working at a call center now. Qualcomm Solutions, $18 an hour, handling customer complaints. He said he's sorry for everything, that he finally understands what he lost." "Do you believe him?" She considered this seriously. "I think he understands he lost stuff. Money, status, the house, Mom. I don't know if he understands what he really lost. You know? I do. There's a difference between regretting consequences and regretting actions. Between being sorry you got caught and being sorry you did wrong in the first place." "Exactly." She looked relieved. "Is it bad that I don't want to forgive him yet?" "No. Forgiveness isn't something you owe anyone. It's something you give when you're ready. Or don't. Both are valid choices." We finished dinner talking about her classes, her college plans, her part-time job at a bookstore. Normal conversation. Normal life. The kind of ordinary relationship I'd never managed to have with Ryan. September 20th. The invitation arrived by courier. Charleston Children's Educational Fund Annual Gala. September 23rd, 7 p.m. Charleston Yacht Club. Special recognition for major donors. I knew exactly what this was. the public announcement of my $1 million donation, the donation made in Ryan's name, the final piece of this long, complicated puzzle. Part of me wanted to skip it. The revenge was complete. What was the point of this last public moment? But I knew I needed to see it through. Not for revenge anymore. For closure. For the ending this story deserved. I called the foundation, confirmed my attendance. Then I went up to my workshop and opened the locked drawer where I'd been collecting documents. Barbara Sanders' 47-page investigation report. The settlement agreement with Ryan's shaky signature. The trust restructuring papers. The charitable donation receipt with its 20-year lock period. 7 months of careful planning. 7 months of moves and countermoves. 7 months of protecting what I'd built from people who saw it only as something to take. I added the gala invitation to the collection. Then I closed and locked the drawer, returned to my workbench where that English carriage clock from 1823 waited. Its mechanism had been frozen by decades of corrosion and neglect, but the bones were good. The craftsmanship was solid. With patience and skill, it could be restored to working order. Some things could be saved, some things couldn't. I picked up my tools and got to work, listening to the 23 restored clocks around me tick away the seconds. Constant, methodical, inevitable. 3 days until the gala. 3 days until the final act of this long, sad story. 3 days until I could finally close this chapter and move forward with whatever came next. The clock's escapement mechanism clicked into place with satisfying precision, everything working exactly as designed. September 23rd. The Charleston Yacht Club gleamed with soft lighting and quiet wealth. 200 guests in evening wear, champagne glasses catching the light, the harbor visible through floor-to-ceiling windows. I arrived alone, wearing my best suit. Several people recognized me, local business owners, fellow antique dealers, historical society members. Polite nods, brief conversations about nothing important. Then I saw them. Ryan and Tessa, standing near the bar, clearly together despite the pending divorce. Ryan looked diminished in an off-the-rack suit. Tessa wore a dress I recognized, 2 seasons old from when they still had money. Our eyes met across the room. Ryan's face went pale. Tessa grabbed his arm, started to pull him toward the exit. "Stay," I said quietly as I approached. "You should hear this." "Dad, we didn't know you'd be—" "Yes, you did. The donation was in your name. Of course I'd be here." I kept my voice conversational. "Tessa, how's the divorce proceeding?" Her smile was poisonous. "Wonderfully. I'm getting everything I deserve. Half of nothing is still nothing." Before she could respond, the foundation director took the stage. "Good evening, everyone. Tonight we celebrate the extraordinary generosity of our donors." Patricia Chambers went through the usual acknowledgments. Smaller donations first, building to the major announcements. And now I'm pleased to recognize a truly transformational gift. $1 million to establish the Charleston Children's Educational Endowment, funding academic programs for underprivileged youth for the next 20 years. Applause rippled through the room. This remarkable donation was made in the name of Ryan Stewart Thompson. She gestured to where we stood, as a symbol of hope that each new generation will make better choices than the last. The applause continued, but I watched Ryan's face, watched him understand, fully and finally, what I'd done, the public nature of it, the permanent record, his name on a $1 million donation he didn't make, couldn't access, couldn't control, a constant reminder of what he'd demanded and what he'd lost. "That's not," Ryan started, voice choked. "Symbolic," Patricia continued, reading from her notes. "The donor wished to honor his son's name while investing in Charleston's future, a legacy that will outlive us all." Several people near us were smiling, nodding approvingly. They thought this was a proud father honoring his son. They had no idea. Tessa leaned close to Ryan. "We need to leave. Now." They slipped out a side door. I didn't follow. Didn't need to. After the ceremony, Patricia found me. "That was beautiful, Stuart. You must be very proud." "It's the right use of the money. That's what matters." I stayed another hour, accepted congratulations, made small talk. Then I drove home to 1847 Battery Street, climbed the stairs to my workshop. The English carriage clock sat on my bench, fully restored. I'd finished it that afternoon, cleaned every gear, replaced the worn springs, adjusted the escapement mechanism. It was perfect. I wound it carefully, set the time, listened to it tick. The sound was crisp, clear, exactly right. My phone rang. Zoe. Grandpa, I got the acceptance letter. USC confirmed my scholarship. Full tuition, all 4 years. That's wonderful. I felt genuine joy for the first time in months. When do you start? August next year. I'm so excited, and scared, and grateful. You made this possible. You made this possible. I just removed obstacles. After we hung up, I sat in the quiet workshop, surrounded by restored timepieces. Each one represented hours of patient work. Each one had been broken and made whole again. The next morning, September 24th, a letter arrived. Handwritten, Ryan's familiar scrawl. Dad, I was a fool. I destroyed everything that mattered. I don't ask for forgiveness, because I don't deserve it. But I need you to know I finally understand. Not the money. The trust, the respect, the relationship, all of it. I threw it away for cryptocurrency and pride and Tessa's ambitions. I stole from you. I lied to you. I tried to have you committed. I became someone Mom would be ashamed of. The donation in my name. I understand what it means. What I could have been versus what I became. I'll spend the rest of my life living with that. Ryan. I read it twice. Then I folded it carefully and placed it in the locked drawer with all the other documents. Maybe someday I'd answer it. But not today. October 15th. I opened Thompson's Antiques at 9 a.m., exactly as I had for 40 years. The morning routine. Unlock the door, turn on the lights, check yesterday's sales records. Behind the counter stood my new assistant, a young man named Marcus. 22, recent college graduate, genuinely interested in antiques. Smart, hardworking, honest. He reminded me of how I'd hoped Ryan would turn out. Same age, same enthusiasm, different choices. Mr. Thompson, that Victorian jewelry collection came in. Want me to start cataloging it? Please. And Marcus, call me Stuart. I watched him work, careful, methodical, respectful of the pieces he handled, learning the trade the right way, the honest way. Outside, Charleston moved through its daily rhythm. Tourists on King Street, boats in the harbor, life continuing regardless of human drama. I'd protected what mattered, secured Zoe's future, established Margaret's memorial, ensured the business would continue. I'd won. The victory didn't bring happiness. I'd known it wouldn't. Revenge never does. But it brought something else, something quieter but more valuable. Peace. Justice doesn't always feel good, but it feels right. And sometimes that's enough. I picked up a Georgian tea service, began examining it for authenticity. A customer would ask about it later. I'd explain its history, its value, its story. Life continued. The clocks kept ticking. The world kept turning. And I kept moving forward, one day at a time. If you like this story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your impressions of this story in the comments. To listen to the next story, click on the box on the left. Thank you for watching.
Welcome to the Story Channel. Before we begin, I'd like to share a few notes. The content in this video uses AI-generated images and voice narration, combined with the channel's creative editing. Everything is intended solely for entertainment purposes and does not depict or reflect any real events or real people. Hope you enjoy the story and have a great time watching.